Hi, my name's John, and this is Business Update. In this week's episode, we'll be talking about how business are affected when wars are happening, and most recently the war that's happening between Russia and Ukraine. Now, for whatever reason, how it all started, and obviously this is going to impact not just businesses but individuals' lives as well. So we've talked about this, last week in our Business Focus Live segment. So here we'll dive deep into the repercussion and as to what's going to happen with regards to the businesses that are operating in those areas, territories, and should businesses take sides in terms of whether you side on whichever country, whether it's Russia or Ukraine. We'll talk about that in detail. So let's start first with the first one. So PayPal is shutting down its services in Russia, citing Ukraine aggression. Now, obviously, some companies are taking a stand, whether that's favorable or for the best interest for your business is a totally different matter because obviously if you pick sides, whether it's Ukraine or Russia, the other side of the country will take it against you and there could be substantial repercussions, so to speak. But let's take a closer look here. So payments for PayPal, as mentioned, shutting its down in services in Russia. So, obviously, citing the current circumstances. So, joining many financial and tech companies is suspending operation thereafter the invasion of Ukraine. So, meaning they're making a strong stand or firm stand in terms of they're not condoning any invasion of any sort, especially that that harms human lives, so to speak, right? So, according to the chief executive Dan Schulman, he mentions that under the current circumstances, we are suspending PayPal services in Russia. And he goes on to say that the company stands in the international community in condemning Russia's violent military aggression in Ukraine. Now, obviously, it's important to understand what's the rationale in Russia's uh, uh, motives in attacking Ukraine, whether it's for expansion of territory or whether it's political unrest between the two countries. Could be a lot of things, but at the end of the day, the result speaks for themselves, which doesn't bold, in any of the two countries. Obviously, as a human beings, it's unnatural for human beings to kill one another, and obviously this affects, not just society but obviously business as a whole in general. Now, according to spokesperson for PayPal, it's will support withdrawals for a period of time, ensuring that account balances are dispersed in line with applicable laws and regulations. So PayPal, which allowed cross-border transactions by users in Russia, stopped accepting new users in the country on Wednesday. So obviously, this will have an impact on your day-to-day operation, especially if you're relying or using heavily using their services here. Now, Ukraine government official has been calling on PayPal to quit Russia and help them fundraising. So PayPal on Friday said that the beginning of the invasion, PayPal has helped raise over $150 million for charity supporting response efforts in Ukraine, one of the largest efforts we've seen in such a short time now. Obviously, the catastrophe that's going to happen because of the war is going to be substantial, and obviously 150 million doesn't hurt, but it's going to be it's going to need more than that here. And obviously, other companies are seriously considering what to do with regards to the situation here. And one such company is McDonald's as well as Pepsi here. So same along the same from Reuters.com, they're mentioning they are considering pausing operation because obviously this doesn't look too well for the company regardless if you pick one side over the other here. And let's see here. So obviously, if you continue operation, this is going to have a backlash in your in other parts of the country as well. So they mentioned here global brands McDonald's, Pepsi, and Estee Lauder considering stopping or pausing their operations here. You also have Mondelez International, Fortinet, Kimberly Clark, Bungie, Coty Inc., Anilam Pharmaceuticals, and Trimble Inc. are also companies that receive such letters. Now, obviously, none of the companies immediately replied to said request. Now, obviously, this can be a dicey situation in terms of making a rash judgment whether to stop or continue because obviously, if they continue operations, outsiders would think that they are collaborating or they're for the aggression. And if you stop operations, this is going to hurt your business bottom line here now, whether it's the short run or in the long run here as well. Now, obviously, political pressure is building for companies to hold businesses in Russia due to the fact of the Russia invading Ukraine here. Now, obviously, pressure is important to stop what's going on here. So sanctions are making some operations difficult here. Even some big companies have already said they will stop, including sneaker maker Nike and home furnishing IKEA here. So pausing or ending operation in Russia would address various investments risk, obviously, but obviously you're putting pressure so that the whatever the situation that's happening right now in Ukraine and in Russia, they would stabilize and stop what's happening here. Hopefully, stop sooner rather than later here. And obviously, it's a difficult situation. Obviously, for a business, you need to continue operations, but to what extent? And obviously, you have a social, moral obligation to your employees and to your consumers as well here. And lastly, uh, what's interesting in Russia is blocking Facebook's uh, for passing the fake news law. You have also LVMH or Louis Vuitton, as well as Microsoft halting their sales in Russia as well. So let's see here. There you go. So according to Reuters, so a lot of things has happening, and obviously Russia is trying to control the narrative that's being portrayed online here. Now, whether it's fake news or trying to control the news that's going outside of the country, outside of the what's the news TV networks that the government is trying to convey here. Russia said it would block Facebook for excluding state media, and CNN said it would stop broadcasting in Russia after a new law punishing fake news raised the stakes of Moscow's fight with foreign corporations. But the question here is, what is considered fake news? Who gets to decide what is considered fake news and which is real? And obviously, if the government is going to dictate that, can be kind of dicey and difficult to do. That's why, as a reporter, as a news outlet, you have to be socially responsible in terms of what you broadcast. And if it's actual news, then you should be allowed to broadcast it to your network and to the to the public themselves. But if it's not, then that's where can get quite shady in a sense here. It mentions here that it marked the escalation in the dispute between that began the invasion of Ukraine. So Russia blocked a way of media companies and new big names announced that they were shutting down Russia's sales, including Microsoft, as mentioned, and video game maker EA. Okay, so obviously, the several companies are making a stance in terms of not supporting or condoning what the Russian government is doing, invading Ukraine here. But Russia said that the Meta platform Facebook was being blocked for restricting state-backed channels. It also blocked websites such as BBC, Deutsche Welle, and Voice of America for what it said was false information about the war in Ukraine. Now, obviously, is it they're trying to spin a different story, whether what's being portrayed and what's actually happening here. BBC mentioned that it would temporarily suspend its work in Russia after introduction of the new law, and can be complicated. And even AT&T is stopping CNN is stopping their broadcast to evaluate the situation of our next steps moving forward. So we have to wait, people on the ground, the peoples themselves who are stuck in that situation, especially the Ukraine citizens there, on what's actually happening here and what's causing it. Obviously, unless Russia can provide some incontrovertible evidence as to why they're invading another country, a free country at that, it's going to be a difficult situation. And obviously, other countries has to band together so that these types of practice will not be condoned anywhere. So many Russians have downloaded VPN software to avoid state restrictions, but internet provider Cogent which said it was the second largest carrier in Russia, disclosed plans to cut service, partly to avoid being used for cyber attacks. Now, again, it's another way of sort of control, because obviously, if many websites are being blocked, VPN or virtual private network is a best way to circumvent that process, but obviously government wants to even remove that options as well. So a slew of major Western brands in broad range of industries have exited Russia. So we've discussed a lot of companies, majors one, McDonald's, as well as Microsoft that we just discussed. Even Louis Vuitton luxury maker LVMH is temporarily shutting down its 124 shops. So they stand to lose a lot of money in shutting down. Now, is it the right one? Will it benefit them in the long run? Only time can tell. But obviously, it is a very delicate situation. Even Canadian Tire also announced it would temporarily close its 41 stores. You also have Helly Hansen Outerwear and Luggage Group and private jet maker Bombardier Inc. said it suspended all activities with Russian clients. So, meaning I think putting pressure to Russia is important so that these types of activities will not be tolerated. That it should not happen because obviously lives are at stake here. People are dying, and obviously businesses are significantly hampered. And with this recent incursion, the recovery time will take years or even decades for Ukraine to recover to where they were before it was invaded here. And it also mentions that shipping and supply chain issues had made it difficult to work in Russia. Obviously, you also have companies like Royal Dutch Shell, to Apple Inc. and to Toyota Motor Corp have taken actions to stopping sales and operations to exiting completely. You also have agriculture commodity merchant Louis Dreyfus announced suspension of operations in Russia. So, obviously the situation is delicate and it has to be addressed sooner rather than later because obviously the more the escalation, the war that prolongs doesn't benefit anyone in either sides, and it might immediately affect only the Ukrainian citizens, but it's going to have a global impact because businesses are intertwined with many regions in many countries, and if they take a stance, will it be taken against them, similar to how Facebook is being blocked, and what will happen to McDonald's, will happen to LVMH, Louis Vuitton, and other companies that have a stake in Russia. And obviously Russia has a big market for many businesses, and there's no easy or simple answer in addressing the situation here. And the worst thing that one could do is, maintaining the status quo here, and hopefully, government heads of government can find a practical solution on ending this dilemma sooner rather than later. And obviously, we're still, still in a pandemic situation. It's not. It hasn't surpassed us. Not surpassed. We haven't overcome it totally. We're dealing with it, and then now we have the war that's happening right now, and war is never good, as history has shown us. So hopefully, this can be rectified or settled immediately. Anyway, I'll keep you updated with the ongoings with Ukraine, as well as how is this going to affect other businesses as well, particularly in Russia or in Europe or in parts of Asia as well. Anyway, the whole leave the link in the description for you to check the whole article here. Anyway, if you have any questions, leave your comments down below and I'll try to get back to you. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to help support and grow the channel. As always, I'll see you again next Wednesday.